So I'd love to ask you as our first question, when was the first time you felt something spiritually or felt connected to something bigger than yourself?
I love that question, Angelica, because, well, we've known each other for a few years now. And, my spiritual practices and connecting with spirit mean the world to me. It's the most important thing in my life. I was lucky enough to have been raised by a mother and a grandmother who are very much steeped in their faith. And so I come from a Vaishnava family, a Vishnu worshipping South Indian family. And growing up, I would be listening to my elders, my grandparents, and actually had the good fortune of spending some time with my great grandfather. And everything they did would be dedicated to Lord Vishnu or Narayana. So their day would start with Om Namo Narayanaya, which is one of my favorite mantras, as you know, for Lord Vishnu, and would end with Om Namo Narayanaya. So I grew up in this very rich spiritual tradition of Bhakti Yoga. And I recall chanting chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita with my grandmother very early on, only chapter 12, because she was a Bhakti yogi. And I think she felt that the other types of yoga, like Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Raja Yoga, they just didn't compare to this love and devotion a way of connecting with spirit, with God. So that kind of set the tone. And I would find myself, even as a very young girl in India, just wanting to spend time in temples, just sitting and reflecting and contemplating, spending time in introversion, which still, I mean, to this day, that's one of my favorite things to do, is just to be and just to connect with spirit. So it started early on. I think the seeds were planted by my, I'm going to say, ancestors, right? As we know, there are no accidents in life, and we know how the Vedic pattern of karma set us up for birth and rebirth, and there's no accident that we have certain parents or we're born into a certain family. So I feel very grateful for that. So
Totally. That's so beautiful that you grew up with chanting. I'm curious, was meditation a part of that too, or any other rituals?
Since we are bhakti yogis, we sing it out, we chant it out, we mantra it out. And then dhyana, or silent contemplation, happens naturally after the meditation. So it's like, I remember one of my meditation teachers would say, like Saint Teresa of Avila would say, we need to cook our mind first before meditation. Saint Teresa of Avila was the great Christian female mystic, right? So I think the mantra, so it's in Bhakti Yoga, the chanting of the mantras, it puts you in that trance-like state, because you become one with the mantra, so it becomes a meditation. But then there is also that quietness that happens after the chanting of mantra, which is so powerful. So yeah, so not so much like quiet dhyana, more of mantra meditation, I would say. Yes.
I love that. And as a little girl growing up in India, did you get introduced to any Ayurvedic rituals as well?
Absolutely. Before that, I do want to talk about, you've been to India and maybe you participated in yajnas or fire ceremonies. Oh my God, like, growing up. So I just want to talk about, you asked me about
Yeah.
meditation. When you have the priests chanting these ancient Vedic hymns as they're making offerings to the fire, it's pure magic, isn't it? It's pure magic. It's like time stops still, which is what meditation is, right? No mind at all. You're so absorbed in the ritual of it. You're so absorbed in the smells of it. You're so absorbed in the sacred smells. And you're so absorbed in the sacred sounds, the mantras. And these mantras have been chanted for God knows how many thousands of years. So they carry the power of the ancestors. They're just, and Vedas are supposed to be Shruti, as in they were divine. They come from God itself, right? So there's so much power in the vibration. So I just want to say that. So back to your question, I grew up with potions and lotions. As I'm looking at my hair, and I have tons of gray hair. Every time I go back home, my mom is like not happy, because my grandmother, when she passed in her 80s, had maybe 2 gray hairs. And my mother, the mother's hair is like so black. She's like, okay, there's just too much gray hair. Are you putting curry leaf oil? Are you using hibiscus leaf shampoo? So that's a growing up. We would be given potions and lotions, which were Ayurvedic. We would see an Ayurveda doctor for, for hair oils, for churnas, for digestion. And of course, we, myself and my brother, we got oiled, abhyanga, with sesame oil in our grandmother's lap since we were little babies. So very much part and parcel of everything we do in South India. So the food is medicine. So my grandmother would cook with so many indigenous medicinal herbs and grains and spices and lentils, going back to what we would call like hand pound rice, and very indigenous and extremely therapeutic greens. Moringa is all the fat. Well, I grew up with that. It's called Moringa kaki, right? And it's a very high source of iron. And my grandmother and my mother would cook it routinely. It's great for the eyes. It's excellent. It's great for the liver. So, grew up with that in that sense. Although, as you know, I was born with asthma, or I got it when I was 1 year old, and my parents tried every modality, and they didn't have to take me to a conventional medicine MD for some support as well, because with asthma you need some quick acting medication. So but everything, food, everything else was pretty much Ayurvedic or folkloric. I'm from South India. I'm, Tamil Nadu. So our indigenous medicine was a big part growing up. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it shows. And for those who are listening, who are not watching this on YouTube and can't see, Sandhya has the most gorgeous, rich, and beautiful hair. I don't even see one gray in your hair. So I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, so that's funny. But yeah, you just radiate beauty from the inside out, and it makes sense that you grew up with all this culture and lushness of rituals.
Thank you. And of course, we will never go out without oiling our hair every single day. In fact, my mother would say, and we both know how much the practice of self-abhyanga grounds us. So my mother would say, make sure you put hair in what in my language is called uchantalai. The crown of the head, the fontanelle. And, now we know so many important marma points all throughout the scalp. And she would say, massage the scalp well, specific areas, and of course we massage the bottoms of our feet for that reason as well. But it was also for grounding the vata.
Totally.
Even though we would use like language like Vatam, Pittam, Kabam, that in my language, in Tamil, you add M to everything. So it's Vatam, Pittam, Kabam. But but sometimes the language wasn't used, but we knew, now I know, oh, that's what they were trying to do, Yeah, so.
It's so cool making those connections now when you're older. And I love hearing that your grandmother showed you kind of like how to cook and everything. Yes. Was that your main inspiration for now being an Ayurvedic chef is such a big part of what you do? But I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh my, yes. Thank you for asking that, because I'd like to say that I come from a family of culinary geniuses. Just the alchemy, and again, this is God's grace. What flows through my fingers is this ancestral love for culinary alchemy. Like my grandmother was just the most amazing cooker. There's something divine about her cooking. But that also ties back to, like, we talk about in Ayurveda, the sadhana of cooking and eating. Like growing up, we would never, so before cooking, we would pray to the gods, and we would say, like my mother or my grandmother would never eat. They wouldn't taste the food. They would offer it to God first. They would offer it to the divine first before even eating. And I think that's what made the food taste so amazing, because it was about making sure that the food tasted amazing for the gods and goddesses. And then we would consume it. But using the simplest of ingredients, the simplest of techniques, she would make magic in her kitchen with these spices and herbs and these greens and the grains, and just it would taste amazing. And actually, my uncle, my grand uncle, who was my grandmother's brother on my mother's side, was a very sought after a cook or chef for marriages and weddings. And whenever you have, and in India, you invite like hundreds, if not thousands of people. And the mark of a successful marriage or wedding reception is the food.
Wow.
Everybody would go like, how was the food? Everybody makes it give, like, what I mean? I guess it's like that everywhere. The food was amazing. So even in the male side, in my mother's side, even the males were like amazing cooks. And of course, my mother was amazing. But I also learned to cook because my mother had some health issues. So of course, I entered the kitchen when I was 10 or 11 years old, because I just wanted to learn more, because my mother was such an amazing cook. But then I also kind of helped out and took over in times of need when my mother was not able to. And I enjoyed that role so much. So I've kind of been in charge of the kitchen in some way, shape, or form since I was very young. So, and then I went to culinary school for 3 years, but till this day, and then, as you know, I got my MBA in finance and detoured in the corporate world for 15 years. But absolutely, I wanted to get back to my roots of cooking. And now what I share is pretty much everything I learned from my mother and my grandmother. And I've, evolved it, obviously. And and of course, now informed with my Ayurvedic education and knowledge and experience. And so, and as you know, your spice cabinet is your medicine cabinet, right? Is the tagline for my cooking classes. So
yeah, I love that so much, and I draw a connection because my ancestors come from Italy. My dad was actually born there, and both sets of my grandparents were born there too. And so that food just being such a big part of like love is like so huge, and that's how me and my grandmother are really similar. And she went very much raised me in a lot, and she taught me how to cook these like yummy meals, and I was right by her side. So there's such like a different like divine connection that you said that has happened there, like just from building our relationship to also just having that offering that you give to others. On Friday I cooked a meal because I've been having difficulties connecting with the original recipes now that I cook in a different way that is more Ayurvedic and plant-based. So I'm in that process of alchemizing it in my own way. But I also want to honor her and show her that like I love all the recipes too. So I made one of her old recipes for my friends, and it's just that I love that feeling, just like serving and hosting. There's just really nothing more heart-centering than that.
And I love, aren't Italian grandmothers all about love? Isn't cooking love? Cooking is love, isn't it? I love Italian food. And in fact, I was talking to one of my students the other day, and she's in, I think, Firenze, Florence, yeah. And we were talking about the herbs and the availability of herbs, and what does Italian cuisine use? Like, maybe it's the oregano, it's the thyme, maybe it's the parsley, it's different herbs. And there's such an alchemy of cooking as well in Italy. And also, feeding. It's called manja, isn't it? Manja. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. Feeding people is showing them love, right?
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
like
for sure.
I'm sure in your culture, as in my culture, the worst thing you can do, the worst thing you can do is you offend your host if you don't clean up your plate. Is that similar?
Yeah, and so that's funny you said that. So my friends that I served it to, like they ate all the leftovers, and then I made a batch for my roommates at home, and
Right.
I asked my roommate like, how was it? And she's like, oh, I only ate like a little half of it, and I'm like, I. But it's totally a different culture, and I have to like
Yes.
remind myself and like laugh with it. But it's funny you brought that up.
Yeah. That's like the worst thing you can do. And of course, seconds and thirds are piled up, right? We know
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I'd love to hear because you mentioned you bring in the Ayurveda and your own vision. You helped it evolve. I'd love to hear what that means in your cookings. How do you alchemize in the kitchen?
Oh, how do I alchemize? Okay, well, I gotta fill up my I think you have to miss, my partner in crime is my spice box, right? My masala kappa. So let us kind of so this is like, this goodness, is goes into not just Indian cooking, but I use this for soups and stews because I have researched, and there's some good books, all these spices, right? They are such potent antioxidants and antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, great for digestion, great for circulation, right? I have the turmeric here, which is the queen of the spices, potent anti-inflammatory. I have the cinnamon here, great for managing blood sugar and also great for circulation. I have a nice mix of my ground star anise, which is such a potent antiviral. There we have the beautiful star anise. I got cardamom, I got cinnamon, I got cloves here. I got a mixture of cayenne and paprika. I got cumin here. I got coriander here. I just got some lentils here that we use for South Indian cooking, right? So herbs and spices, since they are, I call them superfoods, super antioxidants, much like veggies, right? Much like veggies. I mean, and so moving to a plant-based diet. So what takes center stage? What takes center stage are the veggies, right? The veggies are the ones that take center stage, along with spices and herbs. So even if I'm cooking, so I'm actually going to cook for a wellness workshop for a corporate client on Wednesday, and I was actually thinking about what I'm going to cook. I'm going to cook my sweet potato one-pot soup, which is going to be perfect for fall vata weather, right? Mm-hmm. But guess what? In that recipe, I use cinnamon, I use turmeric, I use a little bit of ginger, I use nutmeg. It's not an Indian dish, it's a stew, but I'm always thinking about how can I, and then I finish it off with lots of parsley, right? So I'm always thinking about how can I incorporate herbs and spices in any meal that I make, whether it's Indian inspired or not, right? And I just, I have a cooking class coming up, but I just finished a cooking class recently, as you know. So how we eat, so I want to share, I think this would be very helpful for your listeners as well, right? In Ayurvedic Indian cooking, we don't eat in courses, right? And Indian cooking is so amazing for incorporating all the macronutrients and micronutrients while being plant-based, because we've been vegetarians, a good portion of us have been vegetarians for generations, right? And so our family, I don't even know going back how long we've been vegetarian. So we always have a little grain dish, right? So for instance, I would make for a cooking class, and also I cook for a friend's yoga retreat, I made a little bit of coconut quinoa rice with tons of veggies. So wherever I can, I'm putting in veggies. So it had green peas and carrots and green beans, yeah? Now, of course, it had star anise and cardamom. Star anise, potent antiviral, cardamom is great mucus remover, right? So it's like I'm always thinking what kind of medicines. And then I made a nice spiced cashew curry, right? With sweet
Nice.
potatoes. Yeah, pasilla peppers, which are in season. So using seasonal and local produce is very important. As we know, it's Ayurvedic. And that's something else I incorporate in my cooking as well. And greens, we must have greens, as we know. They cleanse the body. It's great for detoxifying the liver. So good for pacifying pitta dosha. It had greens, and the beans was ilum beans. I would use chickpeas sometimes, or kidney beans. So we always get lentils and legumes and beans to give us protein. And here's the thing, Angelica, many people think, especially as they're transitioning to plant-based diet, they think they need to have a heaping helping of beans. Not really. Beans are like meat. They're like high protein, high fiber. A little goes a long way.
Totally.
You know, and so we have this nice, well composed 1-pot stew, right? That goes with the rice, and then we made a nice cilantro mint chutney.
Oh,
So
yeah.
more greens and more herbs, right? Then I put lots of ginger. Ginger was in every meal, every dish, because as we know, ginger is the universal medicine. And in my cooking class, I also made, with my 7-spice mixture, I roasted baby cauliflower and broccoli and ilum carrots. So more veggies and more spices, right? So now you have a very well composed plate of tons of veggies, a little bit of whole grains, beans for proteins. You got the macronutrients and the micronutrients, and herbs and spices, of course. So
yeah, I love all of that, because I think that's like the common misconception that vegetables are actually so fulfilling. I noticed that I've been vegetarian slash vegan for almost like 5 years now, and I notice if I ever tend to crave meat, it's usually because I'm not eating my greens or I'm not eating my vegetables.
Absolutely. And also protein. People make the mistake. I'm always asking, when somebody, even my friends, say, oh, I'm having this, I'm like, where's the protein? Because without protein, we can get hangry, cranky, irritable. I know for me, so this is where, can I give a protein hack real quick?
Yeah, love it.
Because, being plant-based, dairy is no longer an option for me. So I tell people it's not all or nothing, Okay, so lentils, something like red lentils, Trader Joe's has it. It's readily available. It'll cook in literally 15 minutes on the stovetop, right? In the Instapot, even quicker. We know mung lentils, split mung lentils will cook very quickly. That's a good option. But let's say somebody doesn't have the time for that, or they are hungry. Nothing wrong in having BPA-free organic canned beans in the pantry. Nothing wrong at all. You rinse them very well. This is how I pranafy it. Let me tell you how I pranafy it. I rinse it at least twice, and then I cook it with a little bit of spices, turmeric and ginger, right? So I am bringing a little more prana to the beans, and then I'll add it. I've even added it to a salad to warm up my salad, right? I've added it to my stew. That day I made a rice dish, so I just added some beans just to give me protein. So and little goes a long way with protein. But even if we miss that little bit of protein, we'll feel it. And the cravings are often because of that. And like you said, not having the different veggies, so you're feeling satiated. As we know, one of my what do I say? Your spice cabinet is your medicine cabinet, is one of my core principles of cooking, as is having the 6 tastes of food in Ayurveda, so we feel satiated. So
totally.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that I know you recently went from vegetarian, or I don't know how recent it was, but I remember when we were working together, you said that you were full vegan and plant-based. I'd love to hear what made that transition.
Yeah, and I'm still very much a work in process, but I'm very happy to say I can't even remember the last time I bought milk or yogurt, which is such a mainstay where I come from and in my culture. What really got me on that path was I did see some posts from some friends and about the dairy industry, and from animal rights activists and vegan friends, and this got me researching a few years ago to see if we have quote unquote certified slaughter-free dairy farms in the country. And even, I mean, at this time I was in Ayurveda and I was buying I was anyway buying only organic, but this time I was buying the highest quality dairy possible, like, Clarivale Farms and Clover and Strauss. But when I started my research and I called these so-called, happy cow farms, and I realized, so I asked them, I think 2 or 3 questions. One was, do you artificially impregnate your cows? The second was, what if the baby calf is male? Does it go to veal? Does it become veal slaughter? And what happens? What's the life expectancy of your cow? And at the end of the cow's life-giving years, do you send the cow to the slaughterhouse? There's not a single farm that could say no to those 3.
Wow.
And so I found a sanctuary run by the Hare Krishna people in Pennsylvania, Go Nagari. And that's the only place where they actually, it's an animal sanctuary. And so they actually rehabilitate cows that would otherwise, go to the slaughterhouse. And that's the only place I could find karma-free milk, so to speak, or ahimsa milk, right? And so I would actually got that ship from Pennsylvania to my home in California. But then I was thinking about, but they didn't have yogurt, or maybe they had yogurt and milk, but not butter, because to make butter, you need large volume of milk. And so, and then I started questioning, do I need this that badly? And the carbon footprint of shipping it across. And then I started exploring plant-based milk and started making it. And I don't miss it even one bit. Everything. I mean, my holiday vegan cooking class is coming up, and I don't think I ever want to eat anything other than vegan mac and cheese, for instance, right? Like everything I'm perfecting. I got agar because I'm cooking for another retreat. I want to make mango mousse, right? So I bought agar, which is seaweed, which you can use to thicken. So I'm loving it, because what happens, necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it, Angelica? So I'm loving experimenting with foods, and I'm not going for that same mouthfeel. It's different, but that's okay. I love coconut yogurt raitas. Yeah. I do. I love my coconut milk in my coffee in the morning or in my tea. I love flaxseed milk. I use cashew milk to thicken. I use coconut milk to thicken stews. And yeah, so I'm loving it. I feel so much better. I feel it's made a difference, even like my skin. I feel lighter. And mind you, because you can be vegan and eat junk food, and there's a lot of that happening, but yeah, eating clean feels great. Yeah.
I love that you knew those questions to ask them, and you literally called all those places to see. Because I do wonder, because it's so ambiguous when you go on their website and you read their ethos, and it's just, you just don't understand where they're coming from and what they're really doing. So I love having those outlined questions. It's also really clear for our community when they care about these matters, they can ask. And it just, we talk about this a lot on our show, like Ayurveda is all about intentionality. And what Sandhya was embodying there is that knowing where your cows and how they get treated is important, just because we are nature and we're connected to nature. So we want everyone to be cared for. But on the other side of that too, that's going into your food. So, like how they're treated, and that's an energy, and that energy will come into your consumption. And if we can be as mindful as we can, of course we can't be mindful about everything. Like, we don't want to run ourselves anxious and dry, but when it is a matter that you're really strong about and you can focus on it, it's so beautiful how it played out for you. And yeah, it's so fun to like play around. Like, I think I made mango lassi with coconut milk, and it was so yummy.
That's right. Oh, awesome. Awesome. And you touch upon a very important point. I always say one does what one can. And in Ayurveda, we meet our clients where they need to be. And so each one of us needs to do what's right for us.
Totally.
And knowing that it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
You know, we may not be perfect. That's okay. Nobody's perfect. So just being kind to ourselves and non-judgmental it's part of being balanced and mindful as well. So
Yeah. I know we touched on a couple of these like difficulties of like kind of eating more plant-based diets, but what do you find with your clients? What's like the biggest, and there's often like themes, so maybe there's something current coming up right now, but like what's their biggest challenge of going to a plant-based? Their like
ah,
stipulations.
okay. So first of all, as you know, in Ayurveda, we never take anything cold turkey. We don't shock the system. So the way I approach plant-based with my clients is, first of all, in the questionnaire and during the initial intake process, and I get a very good read on their dietary preferences. And right off the bat, I ask them, hey, you know, this is, so some people seek me out for that. They're like, because they know I can help people transition smoothly and with ease into a plant-based diet and lifestyle. So some people come to me, they're ready for it, right? They're ready. So I ask them, like, would you like that? I'm like, yeah, sign me up. That's what I'm here for. So, right. And then there are others, they're like I'm always about benefits, right? What can it do for you? What can it, let me tell you what it has done for me, and then you tell me. And so, and we know plant-based diet, there's the ahimsa aspect, there's the karma aspect, but we also know it's so amazing for health and vitality, right? Whether it's lifestyle diseases, different types of cancer, we know plant-based diet is going to help us build immunity and be as healthy as we can, right, for the long term. So there's a very much like a health practical application for being plant-based. So when I tell them, hey, this is the benefits for me, we're just moving from vegetarianism to veganism, would you be interested in exploring? And they're already coming to see me for Ayurveda. So they're already like open-minded about this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, sure. And I tell them it's not all or nothing. So I start giving them recipes. And I say, you can maybe, make that salmon dish, but why don't you try this with my coconut quinoa rice?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe next time make my, lentil stew and tell me, see if that hits a spot. And I also help people prepare for it. Like, if you want to transition to plant-based diet, it's best if you have a pressure cooker or an Instapot, because you want to cook this to mush, because as we know, there's digestive issues that can happen with undercooked lentils and beans and legumes. So I want to get them excited about the food and plant-based cooking, right? So that's how I do it. I transition, I give them the recipes, they try it out, and they're like, oh yeah, this tastes amazing. I don't even miss the meat, or yeah, we got something here. And so we slowly build on that enthusiasm, knowing fully well that not everybody's going to fully transition, but hey, even if they've become like, 60 to 80%, and maybe they eat meat when they go, wow, what a difference we've made, not from a karma standpoint, from a ahimsa, but also from their health.
Totally.
And of course, let's not forget the environmental impact of factory farming, right? So
yeah. I love that, because it also gives them the power to try it in their own and to validate it through their own experience, which is what they're trying to say is through direct experience is how you learn. So getting to really try out those recipes and to see what works for them, and then they make the decision, oh, I don't need this, rather than you just like telling them to do that. That's
exactly. And it's, that's the beauty of Ayurveda. And I also give them ideas on swapping. Instead of this, you could use this. And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. I had somebody the other day, they made their oatmeal with a mixture of oat milk and coconut milk versus regular. And they're like, oh my God, it's lovely. It's creamy. Yeah. So it's not going to clog your arteries. So.
Now shifting the conversation over to, so I don't know if I only noticed this happening during the pandemic, maybe you're doing it pre-pandemic too, but I noticed you've been doing these Monday mantra classes ever since. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear what your inspiration was for doing these.
Beautiful. So my Monday mantra classes per se, I took a pause. The Monday mantra classes, we learned a bunch of mantras last year. It was during the pandemic. I think you're talking about my daily mantra circles that I've been doing since, So So last March, so my birthday is March 11th. So last March, I actually went away on a retreat in Encinitas, just a solitude retreat for 3 days to celebrate my birthday, just, just being by myself. And so I was cut off from social media and everything. I remember I went to the Walgreens to get myself some tissues. And the woman, I saw like the paper aisle that was like empty. I was like, oh, I don't know why it's empty. And I go to the checkout. She said, oh yeah, good thinking. You can use this instead of a toilet tissue paper. Like, what are you talking about? Like, no, this is for my nose. She said, oh, okay. I didn't understand. I didn't put two and two together. I was off social media, everything. I come back home and then I get acquainted with the news and everything. Mm-hmm. Now I think I went to Trader Joe's and everything, like rice, beans, pasta. So it was like, I didn't know what was going on. I still remember I decided to buy jasmine. They had a beautiful jasmine plant which grows in South India, and the smell was like, oh my God, this feels like I got jasmine and dark chocolate. That's all I walked out with, because it was crowded, there was nothing. And then I realized that we were in the midst of a pandemic and I was gone for like 3 that's when everything, like, my birthday was March 11th and came back like March 13th or 14th. And I was like, wow, the world has changed. And I asked God the simple question. Of course, then I didn't know like the impact it would have, like on my cooking classes, on my India retreats, which, I take people on retreat to India every year. I just asked God or the universe the simple question, how can I help? How can I be of service at this time? And I love mantra. And so everyday mantra circles to elevate ourselves and to send blessings out in the world when people need it the most. All beings needed it the most, seemed to make sense to me. It just came to me. So I started in March of last year and I did it every day for like 7 to 9 months. And then we did 3 times a week. I used to do it on Instagram and Facebook. And I think I picked it back up. Then I took a break because, then things were getting okay. And then what happened in India, like, the Delta. And I started India prayer circles, and then everything, like, then Yemen happened, then AIDS. There's always need for this, isn't it? And I love it because it keeps me on the straight and narrow as well, because as to show up as a teacher, we have to do the work. And it gave me also so much companionship from all over the world, right? Zoom, everybody can join. And I love it. Like today, I could not post on Facebook, but today we will gather for Om Namah Shivaya. So I'm hoping to keep it going as long as I can, when I can. People seem to love it, and it's Sangha coming together. So that's, I literally asked the universe, how can I serve at this time? And that was the answer that was given to me.
I love that intention. And for our listeners, can you just share your own experience of how mantra has shifted you or shifted anybody who has joined these sessions?
Oh, mantra is everything. It's vibrational. Like I was listening to a talk yesterday on the Devi Mahatmayam, because we're going into the 9-day festival of the goddess, Navaratri. The Devi Mahatmayam talks about, extols the power of goddess Shakti, right? And the speaker was talking about how mantras are so powerful because they act as a shield or armor, and they shift the vibration. These ancient Sanskrit words, Om Namah Shivaya, which means pure awareness, I am. It has a certain energy to it, right? It evokes a certain energy. They all have different vibrations. Or Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. It evokes that fierceness of Goddess Durga. So it gives us that strength to transcend our limited perception of the ego, right? At the end of the day, yes, Lord Ganesha will help us transcend obstacles. Goddess Durga will give us invincible strength. Lord Vishnu, Om Namo Narayanaya, will give us amazing peace. But the end goal is all these mantras are going to take us to that place of divine self, right? Where we are sublimated. We are no longer the small ego, the small I anymore. That's what mantras have the power to do. Mantra, one meaning is that which saves the mind, saves the mind from the thoughts, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future. Mantra brings us to the present moment. And of course, the Sanskrit vibrations are so powerful. They change the vibrational structure of your body. As we know, energy body is everything. There's causal body, energy body, and then the gross body.
Yeah.
So mantras can heal us as well if we are having, like Mahamrityunjaya mantra. When anybody is not well, we chant Mahamrityunjaya mantra for healing. So.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful because, in the Western world, we talk a lot about affirmations, which can be powerful. Like,
very powerful.
I am strong, I am radiant.
Yes.
But there is such a difference with mantras because the way that I was taught was it's unity consciousness is literally embedded in these, and it shifts you like on a mind, body, soul level, on a vibrational level. And there's so much to it. We don't have that conditioning of what does Om Namah Shivaya mean, right? Because we didn't grow up with those words. So it's like there's such purity within them that it does connect us to our inner devas, and that we are just one with consciousness itself.
Absolutely. Very well put. Very well put. And that's the power of these mantras in making us realize that we're nothing but divine consciousness. And from that lens, from that beingness, that's all you can see in all beings. And so, wow, what a game changer that would be if we all realized our unity consciousness. So, yeah.
I love that. I want to finish up with just a couple more questions, but one of them, I was so fascinated that you recently posted about Amma, the hugging saint, and you had the blissful opportunity to hug her. I know it's hard to put these experiences into words, but the best you can. I would love to hear about that.
Wonderful. So as you know from my post, I keep gurus at an arm's length because I kind of grew up in India, right? So it's like there's some good ones and there are some fake ones. So it's fake ones, so to speak. I met Amma by accident. It happened over a weekend. I didn't even know who she was. And I go from seeing her picture at this hair salon or someplace I was at the women's station to going that weekend, driving 3 hours to Kalamazoo, Michigan from Chicago, and getting a hug. And it was transformational. It was clear. We're talking about realized beings. We're talking, and all of us can be that, right? That's what yoga, Ayurveda, all this Vedic path gives us the tools. In her, I could see somebody. I could see someone who embodied the divinity that she was, and was sharing it with so much love and compassion with everyone. So I wanted to know more. So I got her biography that very same day. And I read about her, and I read about everything she had to transcend in her life. She comes from a very poor fishing village, from a very poor fishing family. And her upbringing was hard, but she realized, she became self-realized when she was very young, except people around her didn't understand her. They thought she was crazy. And anyway, the Amma of today, and I've been following for so many years, what I love about her, the Amma of today, of course, is the same as the Amma of that I met 20 years ago. She embodies love and compassion, and her organization, her charitable organization, her philanthropy. I have seen the good they've done in India, all over India, not just all over India, helping, tsunami victims in Japan, or, when countries in Africa go through some disaster. All over the world, the organization is there to help with money and resources and volunteers. And she's hugged with 33 million people. So she's everywhere. And of course, because of the pandemic, she's not traveling. She's hugged people in all continents. And so there's Amma sanghas everywhere. And that's what she's given rise to these satsangas. So I listen to the LA satsanga when they do their Sunday chanting. I listen to San Ramon satsanga. They're going to have the 9-day goddess festival. So they bring people together. And then there's Amma's kitchen. So I've been thinking about how can I, get involved and start that maybe in Orange County, because I think LA has one. It's all about service. It's all about service. And that's what I like. She embodies divine qualities of love, compassion, and service. It's so beautiful. We just celebrated her birthday online, and I was part of it. I attended it. It was amazing. It was amazing. So yeah, I highly recommend people just check her out, amma.org. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that she's a woman. It's so great to have a role model and a face to that, because often gurus are so masculine and have that type of energy. So I think that is so beautiful too.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, she's something else. Yesterday the talk I was referring to, it was through her organization. And so they always have so much goodness and spiritual gems that they share with the world as well. So they're living their spirituality. I'm gravitated towards teachers and, you can say gurus who walk the walk. Because I want, I'm inspired by that. I'm like, oh, I can aspire to be a little bit like that, maybe it'll rub off on me. So.
Exactly.
Right. So
it definitely has. I already, just from this conversation, just feel like energized and refreshed. Like just being around your energy is just the best. So thank you. And I know our audience feels the same, and they're going to want your magic to work with you in any capacity they can. So I'd love to hear how our audience can work with you, and if you have anything up and coming.
Oh, thank you so much, Angelica. And the feeling is so mutual. I think now we've known each other for 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no accidents, right? There are no accidents. Yeah. So, so my platform is alchemyayurveda.com. And, but much like everyone else, social media is where I stay current. So at Sandhiya Ramaswamy, and I'm sure, you have the information at Sandhiya Ramaswamy on Instagram and Sandhiya Ramaswamy on Facebook as the best way to know about my upcoming events. I'm planning, because I've got quite a few requests, I'm planning a Zoom cooking class. Yes, for people who are not in town. I do have a couple of cooking classes in person coming up in San Clemente. One is coming up this Sunday, October 10th, and my epic vegan holiday cooking class is on Sunday, November 7th. And yeah, so all your holiday dishes reimagined from an Ayurvedic plant-based lens. Yeah, so that's happening. And if people want to contact me for a clarity call, for a free 20-minute clarity call, they can go to my website and hit the contact information, and or send me an email at sandhya@alchemyayurveda.com. So many different ways. And of course, I have to say, as you know, I have tons of recipes on my blog. So I want people to start trying Ayurvedic cooking. There's no need to wait. So I have many of my mom's recipes, including my mom's khichdi recipe and her green chutney recipe, so they can start practicing. Yeah. And I also have an ebook on 5 daily Ayurveda practices, which they can download. So also my wish and blessing for all your audiences, to get started on Ayurveda if they have not, any which way, shape, or form, and try it out for themselves. And be blown away by the changes, much like you and I have been blown away. So thank you for asking.
Of course. I love all those beautiful offerings. There's something for everyone, and we'll have all of that linked in the show notes. And again,
and of course, mantra. It's mantra circles are always free, happens 5 days a week. And, they just need to, and the Zoom link I always put it on social media. So yeah, so they can join. So you can come too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and just your lovely energy. It was just the
Oh,
best.
Angelica, that was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for this amazing opportunity and so much joy. I can't believe it's an hour. Like an hour just went like that. Right? Like every time we talk about Ayurveda, that's the beauty of the science, isn't it? This wisdom. So grateful for it. So grateful. So grateful for you. So grateful for the opportunity. So grateful for the ancients that came up with this and God's grace, God's ever-present grace. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Would you like to finish with mantra, 1 Om and 3 Shantis? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So inhaling. Well, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings in all worlds be happy and free. And may my thoughts, words, and actions contribute to their happiness and freedom. Inhaling. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace and more peace. Namaste.
Namaste.